Always like this at church. No one wants to sit in the front. Won't anybody join me up here? Thank you. So welcome everybody here and on Zoom. We have a few people from different places on Zoom. We're here to celebrate Marian Beddill's wonderful life. My name is Reverend Barbara Gilday, if there's anybody here who doesn't know me. And Ann Stevenson, where are you, is going to light our pillar candle, which is something we Unitarians do. It's a symbol of our faith, and it also represents today the spirit of Marian. And Erica? Erica is going to do a reading by William R. Hurst.
Did you want me to use that one?
No, that was fine.
Excerpts from the Song of the River. The snow melts on the mountain, and the water runs down to the spring, and the spring in a turbulent fountain with song of youth to sing runs down to the riotous river, and the river flows to the sea, and the water again goes back in rain to the hills where it used to be. And I wonder if life's deep mystery isn't much like the rain and the snow, returning through all eternity to places it used to know, to begin its course once more, so we shall run the course begun, till we reach the silent shore. For life was born on the lofty heights, and flows in a laughing stream to the river below, whose onward flow ends in a peaceful dream.
Marian called her autobiography None of the Three. And she described at the beginning of the book what were these three things that she was not. She was not who her parents expected her to be. She wrote, "First, I was not Southern Dixiecrat. Even as a youngster, I was well aware of the inherent racial and other discrimination that was characteristic of Southern culture. That purposeful splitting of society seemed wrong to me. Since I had no hope of changing it, I just left it behind. Following 18 years of childhood, 4.5 years of college, and 3 years of military service, I split. I had met a charming person, Kathy. We married and had 2 children, Stephen and Paul. We left the South at our earliest opportunity. Second, I was not a hardline Methodist. When I was a child, my family attended the old line, rather Southern conservative First Methodist Church in Shreveport, Louisiana. It was, to a great degree, one of the churches to belong to in the society circles of the city, but I could never connect with the dogma and the ritual, which did not seem to fit closely with the way things really ran in the town and the state. You may say that you're behaving goodly, whether spelled with 1 O or 2, but you act in other ways. Even at my young age, I caught the disparity. Finding the right spiritual home just happened one evening in 1965 as we attended some civic presentation in Honolulu. On asking what kind of organization had sponsored the event, I read the 6 principles in the brochure of the UUA and the First Unitarian Church of Honolulu, and I needed to search no further. From the rigidity, hypocrisy, and faith just because we said so of the church of my youth, I found great comfort in the open, rational, and welcoming principles of Unitarian Universalism. I already was a Unitarian without even knowing the name, and I've never looked elsewhere these 40-plus years. Third, I was not a guy.
We were able to find some photographs of Marian. Unfortunately, we didn't get these other ones until after the slideshow was all ready, but Andrea's going to play a little while we look at the photographs. And Mark, are you turning off the lights up here? And at the end, you'll be treated to Marian singing the Mission Bells song that she used to sing. So the story, many of you have heard this song, heard Marian sing it, I think, but the story is that a young couple in a small village, I think in Italy, fell in love. And there was some skepticism about them getting married, and they were told that the mission bells had to ring, and if the mission bells rang, then they could get married. But the mission bells hadn't rung for about 40 years. And the next night they rang. So the couple was able to get married. And Marian loved to sing that song. Andy, can you turn the lights back on? Anne videoed that just before she left Bellingham, but 2 years ago? Oh, 7 years ago. Okay. A lot longer. So some things about Marian. She was born on July 1st, 1936, in Haynesville, Louisiana, and died September 30th this year. She lived in several places in the South as she was growing up and attained degrees in climatology and engineering. Marian was creative. She had a varied and colorful career in climatology and water management, amongst other things, which took her to developing countries around the world. On one isolated small island where they had a water shortage, she taught them to hang sheets over their gardens, and it would pick up the dew during the night and drop it into the garden. So they were able to grow some of their own food. Toward the end of her career, Marian wrote about her varied career and her transition from male to female in her book, None of the Three, which Wendy quoted from. Moving to Bellingham after retirement, she and Ruth Ashworth met and became beloved partners, often inviting newcomers to Buff into their home. I'm sure many of you were there. Marian was heavily involved in Bellingham in democratic politics, focusing on rank-file voting, the move to amend the Constitution, and persons versus corporations. She was courageous. She went up against a group that wanted to put together a plant up in Abbotsford that was going to pollute both countries. She was instrumental in stopping that. It was an energy plant. She was frequently an informed speaker at the City Council, particularly regarding clean water. She was known by about everybody in town 20 years ago, and in Buff. Marian was generous. Here at Buff, she created our first website and helped folks with their computer problems. I was one of those. She was welcoming. Marian was part of the Welcoming Congregation program, and as a greeter, she welcomed me and many others. The first Sunday I came, Marian was there, and it was because of Marian I came back. And actually because of Carl, too, because he sat beside me in a pew just behind where he is now. And after we sung a hymn, he turned to me and said, "You need to be in the choir." Sadly, Marian's health began to decline. Many hands and hearts in this congregation, in the years since her memory has been declining, were helping her to be able to stay in her home. But during this time, we noticed how sweet she became. Notably, she was always thanking people for what they did for her. Indeed, her Southern charm, good humor, and graciousness is how I will remember her. One of my last memories of Marian was when she was in a nursing facility on Samish Way before moving to Edmonds. I took her for a walk down to Lake Padden, and we encountered a group of Japanese students, which you saw in the picture up there. And I asked them if they would like Marian to play her harmonic for them. And she whips out the harmonica and plays to her heart's content, and they all loved it. She played the Spirit of Ruth, and they clapped and smiled and said it made their day. And we don't have Marian here to do that today, but Andrea went out this week and bought a harmonica and taught herself how to play the Spirit of Ruth. So take it away, Andrea.
Years ago, I sat down with Marian and wrote out the Spirit of Ruth with her because I wanted to be able to preserve it. Yes, this is a song that Marian created in honor of Ruth.
I can't think of a better way to summarize Marian's life than what Dr. Ken Gass said yesterday. He was unable to be here today. He wrote, "Tomorrow will be a wonderful celebration of Marian's life. Tomorrow will be a wonderful celebration of a remarkable and productive member of Buff and our community." And now Melanie is going to play a medley of Beatles songs, after which we'll invite you to share your stories. And we'll bring the microphone around for you unless you want to come. come up here. Rebecca is going to take the microphone around to people who want to share something, a story, a reflection, a thought.
Sure, I'll start too. I just want to share one memory that came up, and I want to thank particularly for playing the harmonica, Ruth's song, because I looked and looked and looked for a recording of her playing it, but I couldn't find it. So I too had wanted to bring a harmonica, so I bless you. So that was a really big treat, just seeing her with Ruth. That was one of her happiest times of her life. And after Ruth passed, she wore a lot of hats. You know, Marian wore a lot of hats, and she wore Ruth's hats a lot of the time, because in the end, Ruth wore hats because she was bald, right? And sorry, I'm nervous, I don't know why. But I miss her already. I have been missing her. She was, especially when I voted, because I would always call Marian or go over to her and ask her, who should I vote for? How should I vote? And Marian always knew exactly, the right things to do and who to vote for. But also the women's retreat, she loved the red shoes. We had some red shoes at Buff, for those of you that remember the red shoes, and they weren't big enough for Marian. So one time I bought a bigger pair of shoes so she could wear the shoes and dress and dance at the women's retreat. So that was a pretty special thing that we did so any of you that haven't been this year, you may want to go if you are that persuasion. She really was honored. I also love that Marian, she used to keep a list, and I couldn't find the list of all the places she'd traveled, and she would read off that list to everybody that would listen to all the places she had been, right? And one of the places thank you, Donna, and whoever for bringing it, but one of the places that we shared was New Mexico. I'm from New Mexico. I grew up in Santa Fe, and so she would, am I talking too much, Ann? Okay. Yeah, anyway, she was from New Mexico. She went to Ghost Ranch, and so New Mexico. So I'll just say that. Thank you. Did you want to share, Ann?
Real quick, because I want to hear everybody's stories. One time I went to a concert with Marian. I have millions of stories about Marian, but this one is the one that hit me. She and I were sitting together at a house concert. Mary McCaslin was singing. It was at Kara's house. It was a really beautiful concert, and this is shortly after Ruth had died. And Mary McCaslin started singing the Unchained Melody. And we looked at each other and we both just started to cry. And, missing Ruth.
Hi, my name is Donna, and I personally love to go to a park around sunset, and so I was doing that one night, and I invited Marian to come down with me. And she told me, she said, Donna, if I came down to be with you, after about 10 minutes, all I'd be thinking about is I could be at home on my computer working on this project, or that project, or the other project. And so that's just a tribute to her industriousness.
Hi, I'm Beth, and I knew Marian, I think back in the 80s. I remember her inviting me to her office and showing me her mapping system, the GIS thing, and then over the years being inspired the same way. I also called her every election season, Marian, who am I supposed to vote for here? And I remember one year I had nominated her with the volunteer, what's it called, the Whatcom Volunteer Center? Yeah, and they had their Hearts in Hand Award, and so she was my nominee. But I have some good news for everybody here. I have a video of her playing not only the Spirit of Ruth, but also singing the Bells song, and that was filmed in 2014. So back in the day. I always try to remember her birthday, and this one year she was actually kind of hoping that the people at Buff would throw a party for her, and well, I decided to do it for her. We went to some venue down on Holly Street. I can't remember the name of it, but I recorded some of that, and then we spent the afternoon together. And she also came to my house one day for my birthday. I got pictures of that, and yeah, I just miss her. She was very special, such a leader. And who would like to have the mic? Oh, by the way, if you want a copy of that video, and if you know Donna, I sent it to her. She's got one. Or you can come up to me and say, how can I get that from you? It's on YouTube in an unpublished link, but anybody who has a link can see the videos. So,
Shortly after Marian moved to Bellingham, she house sat for my wife and I, Allison, and it was hard. It was really hard for Marian when she first came here. She struggled. It was a huge move. She had eventually started a computer repair business. I'm sure many of you remember that. But what tenacity. And she was so dedicated to this fellowship and really threw herself into everything here. I mean, I can remember 30 years of social justice committee meetings, and I can never remember one she ever missed. She was always there. This woman had incredible perseverance. And I think that's why we all loved her, because she just we each got to know her in her own way. And she was a tremendous world traveler. We spent hours talking about that. And, it was kind of a delight to hear all the things that she had done. But seeing the pictures out here tonight, I'm reminded of just what a remarkable life she's lived.
When Dawn and I moved here in 91, I was working Sundays for years, so Dawn started coming to Buff on his own. And I'd met a few people, but not many, and we found out that Marian was going through a really hard time. I think she was depression, she hadn't been here that long either, really hard, and she didn't know that many people. And I don't know if it was the minister or who it was, someone here, in the congregation that asked her, is there anyone that you would be comfortable talking to? And she said, Dawn Sayegh. And it so surprised me. I mean, I knew that about Dawn, surprised him too. But to have someone who was still new to the congregation and she was so much older than us too, but it was so touching. And she came over to our house and she sat on our couch, and we both held her hands, and she cried, and we cried, and it was I felt so honored, to be in that moment with her, in that really vulnerable place with her. And I've had such a soft spot for her ever since that time.
Many thoughts go through my head, but one of the ones that stands out is that one year at our church auction, and there was the paddle call. This was after Ruth had died. She pledged, it was $2,500, and it was, what she had gotten as a death benefit from Ruth dying. She pledged it so that these hardwood floors could be refinished.
Marian was quite good with children, and she had a special bond with my youngest Zola here at Buff and at all family retreats, and spent many holiday dinners with us, and that's sweet memories.
Hi everyone, thanks for making this event happen tonight. I'm Kai, and I know Marian because I lived with her for a year as a roommate. When I first got to Bellingham, I didn't have much, a backpack, not much money, and I reached out to Buff. Marian offered me a place to stay on short notice. I remember we exchanged a little piece of paper at the co-op about what I could afford, what she would have wanted. I wrote 300 and she wrote 200. She helped introduce me to a lot of different events and groups locally, getting involved with the Lummi Nation. One of the first week I was here, going to one of the Treaty Days event at Lummi. Marian was smart, friendly, quirky. I'm really glad she found a home here at Buff when she felt alienated from kind of the conservative places she came from, and feeling like a lack of closeness with her family, Buff was a place of solace for her. Thank you.
Marian was an education for us all. I remember when she first started, and it was, we gained a huge amount getting to know her. It was hard, but a learning thing, and she was very gracious about the whole thing. And she was so active when they were changing from having precincts and voting in precincts, and when we went to eventually to mail our ballots being mailed, because she was adamant. They can't be computerized if you don't have any receipt that shows how you voted. And she was a hard worker. And I think where we ended up was absolutely amazing. But Marian was behind a lot of that. I have great appreciation for all that she did and how she was so helpful to our church.
Jan and I moved here from, Shreveport, Louisiana. And Unitarians have a reputation for being shy, and sometimes that comes across as being unwelcoming when new people come into the to a church to visit. And my memory of Jan and I, when we sat right over here, the first time we'd come to try out Buff, and sitting right in front of us was guess who? And realized very quickly how welcoming she was. And watching her years after that, she was our self-appointed and very, very effective welcomer to this church. We spent quite a few minutes talking at the end of the service. I learned about her time at the high school in Shreveport, which I knew very well. She learned that we came from Shreveport. And the connection really stayed. We both were webmasters, and we both loved to tear apart computers at a time when you can actually tear apart computers. You can't anymore. And what struck me just a couple of days ago when I voted, Marian was always my go-to person for who's worth voting for.
So let's see if I can do it. I was 16 when she got here. And so I got to experience something that I learned was unusual because I met Marvin, and Marian and I talked about the transition before I left home. And I thought I was leaving my little Buff bubble to go off to another liberal bubble in DC. And she was so excited for me and so proud that I was going to go change the world in DC. And I got there, and it was the middle of the HIV epidemic. And it was terrible. And where I was its own liberal bubble, sure that HIV wasn't going to touch it. And I couldn't figure out what that was about. Because I kid you not, the university's message was there's no gay people, there's no queer people, there's no HIV, doesn't exist. And we were in the middle of the height of the epidemic, and DC was the highest rate in the country. And I couldn't quite figure out, like, what do you mean you don't know any gay people? What do you mean you don't know any transgender people? How is that possible? And the answer was, apparently, I had an unusual upbringing here in this bubble. And it changed my world because it showed me so much about privilege and how blind we can be. And one of my favorite memories, and my mom is going to kill me for telling this story, so don't tell her. I was standing with Marian during one of the winter breaks back from college, and Leonard came up to me, for those of you guys who've been around that long. He was one of our special people, and he tried to give me $20. He didn't have $20. He was mostly homeless. But he really wanted me to go back to DC and blow up the NRA. And I just stood there. I had no idea what to do. And Marian said, take the $20. I'll give it back to him in a minute. And I told my mom, and she was horrified. She was sure that everything was unsafe. And I said, well, it seemed to be his happy way of making an impact in the world, but I promise I'm not going back to DC to blow up anything. But Mom was really sure that we were unsafe. But I was standing next to Marian, so how could I possibly be unsafe?
So for many years, Dawn Sayeg and I taught the OWL, previously the About Your Sexuality program. And one of the, near the end of the high school program, you get a panel of queer people together so the kids can hear their stories and then ask questions. And Marian was always so happy to be helpful with that. She was, you know, very appropriate, age appropriate with stories. And I felt like when I would go, I was the DRE for a while, and I felt like I also was from a special place because other congregations could not provide a transgender person on their panel. And you know, I felt really lucky. So, yeah, we were really lucky, and she did give us all a great education and actually changed my family's life.
I think I can dovetail that with Beth's statement. I'm Dominique. At one time, I'm retired now, used to teach at Western Washington University Sex and Gender and Culture in the anthropology department, and I'd been going to Buff since 2003, became a member in 2004, and Marian and Ruth were some of the first people that I really met, and lots of stories, but in 2005, I started teaching that course for 200 students at a time. So I thought, wow, this is mainly performance, and guess who I asked to perform? It was Marian. She did such a great job with so many people talking age appropriately for college students, very different than OWL. So I thought, anything that they wanted to know from her experience, plus not just her personal experience in trans and the whole experience of having so often and so many times to hide who you are. But she did such a good job too with her world experience of travels in bringing in various cultural experiences that she had seen in Thailand and other places of what we would call transgender. So anyway, just wanted to share that.
I didn't know Marian well, but she said something in my presence once that always has stayed with me. I was new to Bellingham, I knew nobody. And somewhere I saw an announcement that there was going to be a meeting at Buff related to water quality, and because I have been passionate about environment for a long time, I wanted to go. So I came here, and there was I think it was in a conference room, joined the meeting, and Marian was facilitating this meeting. And I could see she was very knowledgeable about water and local politics too. Anyway, toward the end of the meeting, when we were just about ready to leave, I was sitting right across the table from her, and somebody said something to her about whatever the issue was, and I remember her saying, it was just effortless. It was so spontaneous and authentic. She said, show me an injustice and get out of my way. And that has stayed with me because I thought, this is not only an authentic, passionate person about environment, this is a warrior for the environment. And I thought, that's what I want to be.
Hi, I'm Harriet. I was just sitting here listening to these stories, and I remember one time when Marian was selling off a bunch of her stuff down in the Buff Hall. I can't remember when it was or what was instigating it. Anyhow, she had this huge picture that was very prominent, like in the 70s, of a Nordic woman, huge-breasted, very voluptuous, but warrior. And me growing up with all these things always being put around, I was just like, oh my goodness, what in the world? And then I looked at Marian and I went, oh, Marian, this is who you wanted to be. And she's like, oh yeah.
Well, I guess I'll give this a try, since people might be wondering who I am and why I'm here. I did not know her well, but I did meet her several years ago, working on a political action where we were trying to get signatures for a ballot measure. Anyway, I'm not a member of Buff, but I am familiar with the good work you do here, and I'm a big fan. But the way Marian comes in is when several years ago, for some reason, I decided I was going to write a novel. And I won't go into the details, but the novel takes place in Brazil. Why Brazil? I don't know. It seemed like a nice place for a novel. I'm not like Hemingway, who had an interesting life that he could draw on, so I had to put it someplace. Anyway, I'm not a big traveler, and as you can probably see, I'm very shy. It was not even easy for me to come here tonight. But to go to a different part of the world where I don't speak the language, I don't know the culture, I don't know anybody, I just put it on Facebook that I was going there. Where somebody who I barely knew, Marian Beddill, comes to me and says, I will get you in touch with my ex-daughter-in-law and her husband. And I did. So when I went down there, I was not all alone. It made such a big difference. That's my story. Robert Meltzer, I'm sorry.
Hello, my name is Sita. I came to Bellingham in the year 2000 and I knew of Marian and I joined UU and I knew of Marian. I thought in the beginning, I thought, why is she not welcoming? I'm new here and this. So I was really put off and I knew she was talking to everybody in this. So I was shy and I said, well, she's the one who belongs here, who has been here. She should come to me and welcome me. Anyway, years went by and we just said hello to each other. But it was towards the end of her stay here, that's in Bellingham, where she was just a door away from me. I live in a senior housing and she lived nearby. So I went to see her often, having known from Anne how she was doing, etc. I would take her food, I would sit, and then I said, oh, Marian, all these books. I mean, she was very welcoming at that point. I mean, I was also here for a long time. Both of us were comfortable with each other. And she wanted me to catalog something. I forget now, sorry, but I started writing and doing this. I said, this is going to take, 2 lifetimes. You and I won't survive this, Marian. I said, no, you can. So I did that, and then we used to have talks because I was close by. I did feel I didn't go to do enough to go to see her, but I had, didn't make it, couldn't make it. But I remember she gave me her book. None of the three, is it? None of the above? Yeah. None of the three. So I just looked at the beginning and ending and so on to see what the three were, etc. But I really didn't get a chance, I'm ashamed to say, till this day. I said, why are you keeping it here? Why not give it to Buff? Maybe other people can. No, I want to read it. It's sitting there, but that's really a memory of her, and I became fond of her towards the end. And and we are both of about the same age, so I said, oh, maybe we'll have our celebration at the same time or same year. But she just passed on, and she had a wonderful life, so I think she did the right thing to leave and go. Hi, Marian.
Sometimes when people know that they're going to die, they say, oh, I don't want a funeral or a memorial service. And what a blessing it's been for each of us to hear each one of the stories you've shared today. And I'm sure there are many, many more stories that you can share, and we have some nibbles outside and whatnot that you can partake of while you're looking at some of her memorabilia. And there are a couple of her books there, and the family doesn't want any of her things. So if there's anything there that you see that you would like to take home, you would be most welcome. And now we're going to sing Blue Boat Home, which was one of her favorite songs. And the words will go up on the screen. Anybody know the number? Doesn't that sound like Marian's life? And would you extinguish the chalice? And I'm going to read Colonel Robert G. Ingersoll's poem, which was read at a memorial service. Do you want to sit? Before the sublime mystery of life and spirit, the mystery of infinite space and endless time, we stand in reverent awe. This much we know. We are at least one phase of the immortality of life. The mighty stream of life flows on, and in this mighty stream, we too flow on, not lost, but each eternally significant. And this I feel. The spirit never betrays the person who trusts it. Physical life may be defeated, but life goes on. Character survives. Goodness lives. And love is immortal. Thank you all for coming to celebrate Marian's life and to share your little piece of her story with us. At some later date, we're going to take her ashes out to Lummi Island, to the west coast, where Scott, Ruth's son, has sent me a map of the exact place that they spread Ruth's ashes. And Marian's ashes will be spread there. So if you would like to be a part of that, please send me an email or a text and let me know, and we'll figure out a time to do that. And now, please enjoy the memorabilia outside and some nibbles and share some more stories. Let's stand as you're willing and able and sing Circle Round for Freedom.